हेलो हेलो
Hello, hello.
Hello.
वाह 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 वाह। एक जगह आवाज मारी, तीन तीन आवाज आए।
All right, on the count of 3, 2, 1, action!
Welcome, Mariyam, our partner in crime today, and welcome Sabika Muzaffar, who is no longer today's hostess but is also guest on Madheart Talks today. So Sabika and Mariyam are here to talk about their very special initiative called Maybe Muslim, and I just want to give the microphone to them, this metaphorical microphone. आप लीजिए, आप ही बताइए क्या है ये?
I think Mariam should introduce it, considering she was the one who approached me with the idea of a podcast.
I think I should have prepared myself better for this, but I'm really glad that I'm first of all getting this talk show and this wonderful opportunity to speak to both of you. And मैं भी मुस्लिम एक नज़रिया है जो सभी का और मैंने बातें करने से समझा। हम दोनों अलग अलग तरह घरों से आते हैं, लेकिन ना जाने विदाउट एनी कॉन्टेक्स्ट जब हमने बात करना शुरू किया तो हमें रियलाइज हुआ कि एक्चुअली हम दोनों के बीच में बियॉन्ड KNC बहुत सारी कॉमनैलिटीज हैं जो हमने एक्सप्लोर नहीं करी थी। एंड बातें करते करते कई रातें हमने बातें करी और हमें बातों में रियलाइज हुआ कि जो हमारे एक्सपीरियंस हैं, जो हमारी आइडेंटिटीज, एक्सप्लोरेशंस, कंफ्यूजन्स हैं अपनी हिंदुस्तानियत को लेकर, मुसलमानियत को लेकर, वो सब सिर्फ एक कॉल में रिस्ट्रिक्ट हो जाएं, इसमें मजा नहीं आ रहा था। ऐसा लग रहा था कि हम ये बातें अपने आप से करते आए हैं और अब हम ये बातें एक दूसरे से कर रहे हैं, तो कैसा होगा अगर हम ये बातें सबसे करें। एंड उन्हीं सब सोच समझने में, थोड़ा बहुत इधर उधर एक दूसरे की कहानियां सुनने में, आई थिंक कहानी ये बनी कि एक पॉडकास्ट निकालते हैं, कहते हैं उसको मैं भी मुस्लिम, और उसी के जरिए अपनी बातें, अपनी कहानियां और अपने किस्से सबके साथ बांटेंगे। तो सबीका, थोड़ी सी कहानी आप भी हमारे बारे में बता दो।
Before Sabika takes on, Mariam, you have said such beautiful things, and I just want to recap it for our international audience in English as well. Mariam just now said that maybe Muslim, which roughly translates into, well, I am also a Muslim. Uh, is a nazariya, and nazariya is such a beautiful word for perspective in Urdu. So, Mariam, thank you for being so articulate that indeed, maybe Muslim, or well, I'm also a Muslim, or any kind of identity can be a perspective. And you've also said how you and Sabika would always meet and talk about it, and those meetings would never be enough because you share common grounds and common confusions, and you thought, why not bring it to the world? Well, Sabika, I think that's so well put for the reason why you and I are on this mad channel called Madheart Talks. And I'm just so proud of you. My pride for you every day becomes this apple of my cheek. This is why I'm glowing, people. Over to you.
So, mostly what has happened is that actually Mariam and I have never met in the proper sense of the word. हर मिलना मुलाकात नहीं होती. और ironically, I think even though we've never met, तो मिले तो नहीं है, लेकिन मुलाकातें कुछ ज़्यादा ही हुई हैं. Because of course, when you say हर मिलना मुलाकात नहीं होती, you're basically talking about, of course, when you run into someone, that's not really a meeting. But the interesting thing is that every conversation with her has been meeting midway, starting from a very first telephonic exchange, or I mean, of course, telephonic exchange, because she would always call me from Singapore, and that meant we weren't even on a regular phone call. So, if I remember correctly, my first conversation with her was about poetry. And then my second conversation with her was about the situation in the country, because she'd seen a video of me performing at Shaheen Bagh, and her being in Singapore and you being in Berlin, all of us were having similar conversation, that what are the ground realities, what is it actually looking at. So, of course, what happened in the course of that conversation, where she was just sort of trying to figure out how are things looking from ground zero, was that she suggested that maybe as two Indian Muslim women who are feeling suddenly this I don't know, this love for our community and for the first time. And it wasn't so much love for the community as much as it was love for Muslim women finally, and especially Muslim women in the hijab and Muslim women who are burqa clad, finally seeming like uh, people we could relate to. While I'm saying this, I'm feeling a lot of goose flesh and goose pimples go up because it really is something, right? Like having lived in this country for 30 years and having othered your own community and othered women from your own community. So I think what has happened, thanks to the protests across the country, which are of course on a standby, but hats off to the women of Shaheen Bagh. I can't put it in more articulate terms. When I was performing at Shaheen Bagh, I started by saying कि बागी तो दुनिया भर में है मगर शाहीन बागी सिर्फ यहाँ है, which roughly translates to rebellion is everywhere but the royal rebels are only here. So yeah, I think there is something very royal about this rebellion, and we're hoping to take it on to both video and audio podcasting. Yes, with Mariyam sitting in Singapore and maybe you going back to Hong Kong, of course, this rebellion and this revolution is not going to end. So, yes, be it on Madhearts or be it on Maybe Muslim, the idea is to reclaim a little bit of sky and hopefully be able to do it through e-bunkers and more e-bunkers and more e-bunkers. So cheers to another one on the onset of Ramazan.
Cheers
Yes,
to that.
Dan Mubarak on well chai. So many layers to
Metaphorical chai.
everything.
Cheers.
So many layers to everything that you've said. One that okay, these are questions I'm going to throw at the two of you. And this is, dear Mad Hatters, going to be a longer episode today. But I'm really excited to hear Mariyam and Sabika out, and I really hope you are too. And this is going to be packed with nuances. So hopefully you will bear with us and listen to this whole episode intently, because these two women are finally, as they say in their own words, claiming their Muslim identities for the first time, which they themselves othered. So Sabika and Mariam, you probably need to unpack this for our viewers and audience, and even for me. Why did you other your Muslim identity?
Do you want to take that first, Sabika?
I could. Maybe because actually Mariam has actually embraced it a little better than I have. So maybe I am better equipped to sort of talk about this. That mostly I think when we were born, both of us were born one into India as Indians and into Muslim families as Muslims. Now, of course, there's a reason why I'm saying into India first and not into Muslim families first. Maybe because somewhere the pride we took in being Indians meant at various levels diluting the fact that we're Muslims. Both of us, I think, in different ways, might have found ourselves negotiating with our Muslim identities, where in order to kind of put being an Indian first, we ended up putting being a Muslim not necessarily where it belongs. So it shouldn't have been a conflict because तुम पैदा हुए तो मुस्लिम हो गए, तुम पैदा हुए तो इंडियन हो गए. Technically देखा जाए तो both of the identities are by default, by birth identities. They shouldn't have been at loggerheads. But yeah, I think in the process of trying to be more meritorious about our earned identities, Indian again having to be earned. Maybe Muslim constantly kept taking a back seat. So I mean that's how I would put it. And now I think it's over to you, Mariam. Unless Priya, you wanna just interject and say something.
No, I want to listen to Mariam's thoughts on this.
So I would agree with Sabika with the idea of why there was a conflict, because both the identities for me, being a Muslim and an Indian, are accidental. So I've never really had a sort of attachment with either of the identities. Like, it's never been something that I need to feel I want to do prove it, because I am a Muslim, and I am an Indian. I don't need to prove it to anyone, you know but there has been a I would say, constant stream of underlying feeling or underlying perception that when you are putting yourself out as a Muslim, you have to somehow be more nuanced about it. You have to present yourself in a manner that you think is acceptable, because there's so much phobia attached to the identity of being a Muslim. And I think the bigotry also is that you are also trying to figure out who you are. So you're not sure which identity is actually your real enabler. For me, my biggest enabler has always been that I need to be at most comfortable with myself in that given moment. Whether it's in my own house, whether it's in my country, whether it's in my community, wherever I am. And that often puts me on the sideline, because you're not really claiming for anything. You're saying, I am who I am, and that's just it. But what has happened in the last few years now is that I've constantly felt that being a minority is something that I should be worried about. And why should I be worried about? Why is this a question for me to worry about? I'm an Indian. I am an Indian by the letter of the law, and that's how I am as a Muslim as well. Like, why should I need to worry about one identity? And now, on top of that, because the one identity is something that is constantly questioned, the other identity is already at stake. And I think that essentially led me to kind of be very open to Sabika as to why the conversations that I and Sabika were having were more relevant to anyone listening in as well. Because all of us at some point in our lives are going to have conflicts with the identities that have been imposed on us. And so the journey is to claim it. The journey is to be like, जैसे भी हैं, जितने भी हैं, you know, मैं भी Muslim, मैं भी Indian, everything.
Or not.
Or
And
not.
what
I mean,
or not. If
yes.
you don't want to conform to a label, there
Yeah.
is no.
Yeah. I mean, yeah. Go on.
Actually,
Actually,
listening to
at this
you.
point, I would want to bring Priya in because I remember Chute. As soon as I had introduced the idea of maybe Muslim to Priya, she was like, maybe Muslim. I should be on this podcast. And that was quite a thought because I do think that Priya believes that in her last life she was a Muslim, and she finds herself in very interesting situations where she's the only Hindu amongst, like, I don't know, a bunch of 4 or 5 co-founders for her NGO called Sahyo. So I think it's time to hear you and why would
Why
you?
मैं भी Muslim? अरे
Yeah.
यार मैं भी Muslim because मैं भी Muslim. मैं भी Hindu, मैं भी Muslim, मैं भी Christian, मैं भी Sikh, मैं भी Buddhist. It doesn't matter. I think that has been my journey for a very long time. Because I genuinely feel वो जो गले you express it very beautifully Sabika. ये जो गले में एक अजीब सा वो जो ठेस क्या बोलते हैं ठेस
टीस उठती है दिल से
टीस
और
हाँ
गले में वो एक लंप सा
when you're
फील होता
sad you feel this lump in your throat. When somebody says anything against any kind of a cultural minority, I feel it inside my heart because I am a cultural minority. I'm a woman. All my life, I would have to negotiate with this identity of woman. And I was telling Sabika in another episode where no amount of medals, trophies, or where I am in life has ever put me at ease with this, with me being a woman. Because constantly in social situations, I would find myself literally clawing for my space. So I do understand what it is to be a cultural minority. And incidentally, I'm the only Hindu in most rooms because I have a non-profit all led by women ground up, and I'm the only Hindu woman who's at is also a founder of that organization. So I mean, I wouldn't want to look at it from that perspective that, oh, I understand what it is to be a minority in a majoritarian religion aspect. I want to be a part of maybe Muslim because as an Indian Hindu woman, I want to be able to say, yeah, maybe Muslim. I want to be able to say that, yeah, of course, your troubles are not your troubles, are my troubles. If we let the labels go, then you would have to stop seeing me for my last name, which is Priya Goswami, which is as Hindu as it gets. I mean, just by the surname of it. And Mariam, that thing that you were saying, and also what Sabika mentioned, and we can't no longer tiptoe around it. 15th December, when Jamia students were attacked, a lot of us, a lot of urban, complacent, urban, complacent, middle class Indians were shook to their core because Jamia is a university in Delhi, and some of us studied in Jamia, have very close associations with Jamia. And I remember I was on a flight back from Berlin to Hong Kong, and then when I saw the news, मेरे दिमाग में ना सिर्फ एक शब्द चल रहा था उस वक्त. Now I have goose flesh, which was देश. देश क्या होता है ना? That word देश या देशभक्ति क्या होती है? I don't want to say it, but you know, when you feel like, no, this is my country, I'm gonna fight for it. I'm gonna fight for my country to be secular. मेरे नाखून निकल आए थे, you know. The same way I would claw for my space in any male gathering where my voice is not given equal importance. So I do understand, and I think this cultural revolution that we're talking about happened from some horrible events that happened in our country, not even like 4 months back, 3 months, 4 months back.
But
Yeah.
I'm so glad that we have Mariyam here, because I do think that a large part of my quarantine, or rather, whatever, a large part of my house arrest, has been about my conversations with Mariyam. And I think between 15th December and when the official lockdown was sort of, broadcasted on television and all of that, I think. I think what I realized only in retrospect was that 15 दिसंबर से लेके इस वक्त के बीच I didn't have the ability to fully comprehend कि हुआ क्या है. Like I didn't really have the faculties to wrap around my head ki what hit me. And you know how there are those situations where life is ahead of you, and yes, of course, I had the luxury of performing protest poetry at protest site after protest site after protest site. And of course, to most of the social media, it must have been seeming like, okay, she's doing something and maybe she is being able to put herself to sleep, considering we've spoken a lot about the guilt that keeps us up at night, or whatever doesn't allow us to look at our own faces in the mirror. But I was guilty about my own set of things. I was feeling guilty about, like I said, having othered this community, and now suddenly, feeling like this almost exotic breed of, I don't even know what. मतलब, because you're neither here nor there. आपने अगर जिंदगी भर शन की अपनी रिलीजियस आइडेंटिटी कभी नहीं पहनी स्लीव पे, अब now suddenly a lot of people who you call your own are telling you that they can't empathize, fully offer empathy, simply because they don't know what kind of a situation you're in. So that is true. But interestingly, like when people like a Priya Goswami, or people like, who are part of my inner circle, are also saying, I don't know what you're really going through, then you're also confused about, wait, what are you really going through? तुम
Yeah. Yeah.
literally तुमको लगता है ना तुम इधर के हो ना तुम उधर के हो.
Yes. Yeah.
And it's such a crazy situation to be in, where you're like, huh?
Yeah.
And the thing was that I did not sit at Shaheen Bagh for an entire day also. I would just I had just moved to Gurgaon. I would take like 1.5, 2 hours to get to a protest site. And I would just perform and run away, because again, I would need 1.5, 2 hours to get back. And of course, like, Delhi and Gurgaon even being unsafer than Delhi. Um, it was more my priority to get back home safe than to really be able to spend the kind of time that ideally I should.
Mm.
So I kept asking myself, who am I to tell them anything? I mean, if anything, I am taking so much from them. I am taking resilience from them. I am learning something from them.
Them being
Because,
women of Shaheen Bagh,
yeah,
the
I
sit-in
mean,
protesters.
yes. And
I
sorry, I just felt that it was unfair to just sort of waltz in and waltz out and, like, find yourself holding this mic, which is of course such a phallic symbol, finding yourself on a pedestal when you clearly would much rather be sitting there and listening to them.
Hmm.
I kept
Yeah.
feeling like, what do I have to say? And finally, thanks to Mariyam, and actually, technically, thanks to finding my first Shia Muslim woman friend. Uh, yeah, in 30 years, I've not had a Shia Muslim friend. Not one.
मुद्दा यही है, मुद्दा यही है, असली मुद्दा दोस्तों बैड हार्टर्स अब निकल के आया 20 मिनट बाद। सबिका को फाइनली एक दोस्त मिल गई है जिसकी कमी मैं कभी पूरा नहीं कर सकती थी।
Where is this going? हाँ, okay.
मैं एक चीज शेयर करना चाहती हूँ मरियम से। एक्चुअली मरियम, जब ये प्रोटेस्ट चल रहा था तो वी वर ऑल इन अ वेरी डिफरेंट ऑल्टर्ड स्टेट ऑफ माइंड। सबिका ने एक बात कही थी जो मुझे बहुत ही आई डोंट नो, आई डोंट वांट टू डिस्क्राइब इट, बट शी सेड कि फॉर द फर्स्ट टाइम इंडियन मुस्लिम्स आर स्टैंडिंग अप फॉर देमसेल्व्स, otherwise Indian Muslims don't stand up for themselves. And I felt ashamed in that statement. I went through a range of emotions in that statement. What do you think about that?
So it's good you asked me that question, because from what Sabika was explaining, there were 2 points that are coming to my head. So one was the idea of fear. Like I, I think over the last 2 years, to more than 2.5 years now, my biggest surrender and my biggest struggle has been of recognizing the pockets of fear that I had internalized and accepted as my identity. That Mariyam is like this, or Mariyam behaves like this. And gradually I realized that a large part of that fear was never having acknowledged just the way I am as a sexual minority, as a religious minority, as a cultural minority, because somewhere I had conditioned myself into accepting that it's like this, it's how it is. So the one of the reasons why I was so bent on having this kind of conversation become public is because I don't want to be living in a sort of fear where I'm conscious about my Muslim identity all the time.
Mm.
I don't. It's a fact. Move on. That's about it. Why do you need to critique it and ask me to justify it? And why am I supposed to give you answers for things that are happening with the other 1.3 billion Muslim population in the world? That pedestal question was like, yes, Sabika feels that she was being given this by me asking her what's happening. She suddenly felt like I don't know what's happening because I'm not living their life. And that's very true, because all of us have at some point lived different journeys of with this Muslim identity, but we can't associate. I can't associate with the struggles of what the women sitting in the protest were going through. I can associate with my struggle. So I felt very grateful for having Sabika to be my sounding board. Like, yes, I know what you're talking about. Yeah, I think I feel that way. So that one is that the idea of fear. And then it's very naturalized, it's very normalized to a degree where you breathe in and breathe it out. And the other thing I wanted to like highlight is this finding your place in the movement. Like Sabika said that she used to go perform her poetry and come back, not really having the kind of space to listen to seep in the effects of the movement on her. But I feel that everyone, and I think through that questioning, that the moment you start acknowledging like, where am I placed here, what role can I play here, is when your role starts becoming clearer. Like Sabika and I and you are probably not sitting at the ground for this movement, but we are channeling our best resources and our best understanding for a conversation that's going to take another format. you know And I think this podcast is a way of Sabika and me finding that journey, finding that place in the movement, and saying with open heart and with all the vulnerability that मैं भी Muslim. I'm with you. You know.
I'm going to say that out loud. मैं भी Muslim, yeah. Include Mariam.
No, because
But
thanks for saying that again and again, Priya, because I remember you and I having this conversation where I told you that if plenty
Sabika,
of
one second.
Hmm.
It's going to be 6 o'clock. Mariam, if you need to drop off, do let us know.
Yeah, I mean, I can. It's 8:30, so I can be for another 10 minutes. And
Okay, cool. All right. Sorry about that, Sabika.
No, that's
You just
perfectly all right. Thanks for keeping time. So I was mostly just going to add that you of course already said कि मैं कुछ भी बोल सकती हूँ, मैं भी मुस्लिम, मैं भी क्रिश्चियन, मैं भी जैन. I mean considering technically क्या मतलब मैं और मरियम भी एक दिन सुबह उठे and we decided आज से हम बोलने वाले हैं, like so it really is coming from that fact that kitna bhi, like even if you're a 0.01% of a Muslim, simply because you love every Eid to be a
yeah,
part of an Eid celebration, why should that stop you from saying मैं भी Muslim? आपका surname Muslim surname नहीं sound करता है ही नहीं, उसका that shouldn't stop you either. So घूम फिर के what we're trying to claim is, like for instance, I think I've said this to Priya a fair few times, that on most days I feel more Hindu than I feel Muslim. And that's when she responded to me by saying, on most days I feel more Muslim than I feel Hindu. So, I mean, of course, we're probably voicing out some very odd, weird sounding thoughts, but maybe subconsciously that's there for a lot of people. So for me, I think one, unfortunately, being a Muslim has been a very apologetic identity, and I want to stop apologizing.
yeah.
And two, if I have subconsciously reached that point where the indoctrination has actually led me to other people from my own community, then maybe in that act of, me embracing my own, hopefully those who are not even part of the community will find it easier to also stop othering the community.
Mm. Yeah, that's very very well said, actually, Sabika. It's I actually don't have much to add to it because I honestly feel there is so much that we have talked about, Sabika and I, for over a month now, and I still feel there's so much that we haven't, because every single conversation that Sabika and I have had has opened up another room for conversation. We're like, wait, did you feel the same way? I mean, and that has given, I think that is the engine behind the podcast in itself. That's the engine and everything that will catapult this podcast to continue. Like both of us are the kinds of people who are just wanting to engage. Like we just we just can't not talk about it. Like Sabika was asking me yesterday that how like we were just getting a little confused on the timeline, like how do we do it? And then we were like, but the thing is that there is no alternative to this. It's not like, oh, we could do another podcast maybe. That's not the premise. The premise is that this conversation is it's not just that it's timely. There is no other alternative. Like बात नहीं करोगे तो फिर क्या करोगे? And we're just very happy that we are getting to talk about it today with you. And honestly, like, I've spoken to you face to face for the first time, but my heart feels so full right now, like just listening to you and feeling that there's so much warmth in a conversation. And I think that's what we're always seeking, right? Like that's what takes away the othering on its own. You don't need any more critiques or descriptions of who says what and who understands the situation how. You just need to be open, and then that's all that matters.
That is right. And with those wise words, I would say that Sabika, it is indeed time. This has been a 30-minute long episode, Mad Hatters. If there is one thing that you can take from this episode, please take these warm hearts and warm smiles. We are so happy because in this podcast, in this moment, all three of us are Muslims. And nahi hum aapko nahi batayenge which kind or whatever. And hopefully हम सब रमजान मनाएंगे इस बारी and really raising our toast for a better future where there are no such labels which well there are labels with, that's why there are those labyrinth wale podcasts so more power to that engine and more power to Sabika and Mariam. Thank you so
Thank
much.
you. Thank you so much.
Mariam, we
Priya.
blow air kisses at the end of every episode. So, as awkward as it might make you feel, maybe you could offer some awkward kisses with us. Come. On the count of 3, 2, 1.
PS, love you.
Alright.
Thank you so much,
Bye.
both of you. Bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Thanks, Mariam.